Um, Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you all for the first lecture of Boğaziçi lecture series of this academic year. As you might know, the Boğaziçi Lectures is a conference series which was initiated in 2013 as part of the celebration activities of the 150th anniversary of Boğaziçi University. Various academicians from different fields and universities have been hosted within the scope of this program so far. The goal of the Boğaziçi Lectures is to bring together prominent thinkers under the roof of Boğaziçi University, and especially in this beautiful, historic place. Today, we're very lucky to have Princess Dr. Nisreen El-Hashemite to deliver the lecture titled Equality and Parity in Science for Peace and Development. Before starting the lecture, I would like to thank Aydın Doğan Foundation for their cooperation to organize this lecture. Now, I'd like to give a brief introduction to our lecturer. Dr. Nisreen El-Hashemite is an internationally recognized the first royal princess, medical doctor and scientist, and winner of awards and honorary doctorates in the fields of science, art, literature, and humanitarian affairs. Her medical and scientific career started in 1995 at the University of London Hospitals and Institutes, and then after at Brigham and Women's Hospital, Harvard Medical School. She published several scientific papers and original investigations, more than 30 social studies, and is the author of 8 books, and is eloquent orator who captures the respect and hearts of people, as you have done mine. She's the founder, president of World Women's Health and Development Forum, founder, president of Women in Science International League, and co-founder of Culture for Peace program. I hope I'm not skipping many things, sorry. Without further ado, I would like to invite her at the stage to give her talk. Princess Dr. Nisreen El-Hashemite.
Good afternoon to you. First of all, it is such a great honor to be in this great institution, academic institution. I feel like I want to leave everything behind me and come and apply for a position here to join you. How lucky you are for the students and as well for the colleagues. Zainab Hanum, Professor Zainab, thank you so much for the great introduction. I would like to thank Bosphorus University for inviting me to be with you here and to talk a bit about my work and as well what I'm doing in this life. Hopefully you will find it inspiring. I've been invited this visit to come to give a keynote speech at the International Day of a Girl Child conference that is organized by the UNICEF, UNFPA, UN Women, and Aydın Doğan Foundation. And I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank Aydın Doğan Foundation and the great work of its team. Candan Hanum, thank you so much for the great work, the passion that you have to serve the children, the society, and the community, and as well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be at the Bosphorus University. I highly appreciate it, and I'm so grateful. I did not prepare a speech. Actually, I prepared one, and I decided that I will talk from my heart without anything in writing. I will start my speech by a statement that I presented during the 50th anniversary of UNESCO, for establishing UNESCO. And at that time, it was actually in November 1695. And I said that the Western Eastern northern-southern dialogue cannot remain restricted to one domain, but it should be extended to broader vistas. The dialogue has to move to science, education, culture, and arts. Thus, international peace and tolerance will be implemented only through creating different aspects of collaboration between individuals and organizations that indeed will help in narrowing the gap between developed and the developing countries. So many things are not implemented in this world because our fate as doctors or scientists or human beings is in the hands of the international community. And when I say the international community, it is mainly the United Nations, the policymakers. They produce a lot of law without us knowing what is happening. As you may know that I am the granddaughter of King Faisal I of Iraq, and I am a direct descendant of Prophet Muhammad and Hazrat Ali bin Abi Talib. And the only girl, I have 3 brothers older than me. So I grew up in a house that has, my father is a professor of management, my mother PhD in Islamic law and Sharia from Al-Azhar. And for me, I grew up in a house that I know, first of all, I have to know why I am a Hashemite, why I am a Hashemiyya. So I have to know everything related to Quraysh before Islam, about all religions, then come to Islam, Prophet Muhammad, all the seerah, then Imam Ali, then Hazrat Hussein, Hazrat Hassan, Hazrat Zainab, etc., etc. So when I sit with people, even in Turkey, they ask me, oh, how come you have a lot of knowledge about Islam? Because actually I am the history of Islam. I came from the house of Muhammad. So Alhamdulillah, I know most of Quran by heart. I have only 1 surah and a half to conclude. And I know it, I studied Islam. So I am not a Muslim because, wallahi, my grandfather is, my ancestors are Prophet Muhammad and Imam Ali, or my parents are Muslims, but because I want to investigate more. And I think the more I studied in Islam, the more stronger I became to serve community everywhere. Then about the history of Iraq, of course my history starts with we are originally from Mecca, we are not Iraqis. You know, Sharif Hussein, then the Ottoman Empire, our relations with Turkey, with the Turks, etc. And then it comes the Arab Revolt, what Jamal Pasha Safah did, what Al-Ittihad wa Taraqi did to the Arabs, and it was the start of the Arab Revolt. My grandfather was the king of Syria first, because the people of Syria chose him. Then, you know what happened, just to make this story short, then my grandfather was elected by the Iraqis to be the king of Iraq, and this is how I became Iraqi. So actually, I am from a political family. My cousins is still ruling Jordan, the kings of Jordan. And in 1958, a military coup happened in Iraq. My cousin, the 3rd king, was killed. My auntie's a grandmother, and my father luckily survived because he was on that day in Cairo, was traveling to Baghdad. My father couldn't continue in this world if he wasn't well educated. At that time, he had only master's degree. So there is no country. We are not allowed, he wasn't allowed to go back to his country. At the same time, you know, like live in Egypt where Jamal Abdel Nasser was at that time, you know, sponsoring a lot of revolutions in Arab countries. So this is a bit of the history. My father directed all his work towards education, education, and education, investing in youth. Of course, married my mother, had 4 children, and this is a bit about my history. The 3 brothers that I have, the first one, professor of chemistry, at the age of 30, full professor. So he's my mentor in science. Before I went to school, start first grade, he used to teach me equations in physics, mathematics, etc. So I became a scientist even before going to school. The second one, everything related to arts, for Nisreen. The third one, everything related to electricity, etc., and engineering, Nisreen. So you can tell everybody wants Nisreen to be the Miss Perfect, but I wanted to be myself. I wanted to be who I am. I want to be. I want to be, when I was 5 years old, I used to say I want to be a pilot to go and discover the world. At 7 years age, I said I want to be a doctor to help to put a smile on people's face. I finished high school, applied for a medical school, but then what happened? You are a royal princess. Science and medicine is not for royalty. Go and find another college. My problem wasn't that I'm a woman. Actually, I am an A student, but that Her Royal Highness Princess title. Go and find literature school. Somebody to do the work for you. I took the challenge. I finished the first degree, then the second degree, the medical doctorate, and I found in medicine that actually we are just writing prescriptions, but I needed to do more. There are so many questions I need to answer. I wanted to be heart surgeon. I'm not using medical terms because maybe some of you do not from medical field. So I wanted to be heart surgeon, but in a pediatric ward, I met a little girl who had thalassemia, an orphan, and she was crying and talking to God, you know, and to her parents who are in heaven. And she asked me to promise her to help children like her. So I promised her. A few months later, Natasha passed away. And this is how I directed my life into genetics, from surgery, the thing that I loved so much, into genetics. And I did my master's degree in molecular biology, and I dedicated my master thesis to Natasha and to all children like Natasha. And started my PhD at Yale, and I wanted to work on human embryos to develop techniques for prevention of genetic diseases. But in United States, you are not allowed to do any research on human embryos. So I moved to London, where my parents were at that time, and I went to UCL, University College London, where genetics as a science was born. Professor Hopkinson, the head of postgraduate studies, said to me, "Your Royal Highness, because of your prestige and your name, I prefer if you can go to Oxford." Okay, and the head of the genetics in there is a well-known professor, and wow, it's such a great honor. He took an appointment for me. I went there in '94, and it was on 22nd of December, '94. I met him at 10:15. He's supposed to interview me. He started the questions by asking any question about genetics. The moment I will open my mouth to give an answer, he will move. No, this is not what we are looking for. No, this is not what we are looking for. And in fact, I was much more with the protocol than you see me now. And then in all Oxford, it is smoke-free, except in his office. He used to smoke pipe. And I looked at him, I said, "Sir, may I say something?" And he said, "Yes, of course." I said to him, "Believe me, sir, giving up Yale and coming to Oxford is as difficult as giving up smoking. And being a royal princess is more difficult than being a sir or a lord or even a science professor, particularly if you are in exile." And then he looked at me, he said to me, "Listen, I want you to start from January 7 in my laboratory. I will supervise your thesis." I said to him, "Thank you so much." I took the train back to London, went to Professor Hopkinson without an appointment. I said to him, I'm not there because I am a princess. I want to be the princess doctor. I have an MD. I want to do my second doctorate. If you accept me, that's fine. If you don't, I have a place at Yale. So I was accepted. It was the time to find the supervisor. And my supervisor, she was so excited. Wow, a princess. But then she treated me, she was like the mother who's a bit tough on her children. And, you know, like I was the Cinderella, you know, and the other female colleagues were like the beloved daughters, and I had to do all the work by hand, etc. That's fine. And I started to work on preimplantation genetic diagnosis of single gene disorders. What is it about? It is about, as a kind of prevention program, to diagnose test tube babies from any genetic disease. And it's supposed to start like as a kind of prevention program to replace prenatal diagnosis, which is diagnosing the lady when she's pregnant, you know. And it was like to diagnose, to amplify a DNA at that time from a single cell. That was the most difficult thing. The technology wasn't like what you see now. We had to amplify everything within, you know, like 2-3 rounds, etc. And I started working on these techniques. At the beginning, I just realized, there is something here. You know, we don't know what is the anthropology of genetic disorders. And I did a study about the anthropology of genetic disorders, about like, so it can help me as a geneticist to serve patients when I see a patient from, say, for example, from Iraq, from Baghdad, from Basra, from Anbar, from Diyala, so I can immediately figure out what kind of diseases I have to look at. And how come we have cystic fibrosis mutations that are in Caucasian over a sudden came to our region? So I did all of this study, but for political reasons it wasn't published. So I continued with the single gene disorders and PCRs. And immediately after, my professor told me, oh, you practice your religion, but I don't know if such techniques are permissible in Islam, because in Christianity and Judaism they are not permissible. So I just stopped in here and I said, okay, I was doing the research, but I need to see the Islamic opinion. And took appointments at Al-Azhar and with the Khoi Foundation, which was the only Shiite foundation overseas, and its connection directly with Najaf and Qom. And I found myself with my headscarf that it used to fall down every time, and I have to pull it, explaining to all these clergies and imams from the sperms, division to egg division, fertilization, chromosomal divisions, what is a DNA, etc., and all of these things. And then I asked the questions. And I got the fatwas from Al-Azhar and Najaf and Qom. And the fatwa says, and both the three fatwas were similar, identical. Number one, for prenatal diagnosis. Prenatal diagnosis, we can conduct prenatal diagnosis and determination as long as it is before or within the period of 120 days. Because we, according to the Prophet Hadith, you know that the soul starts from 121 day of pregnancy. So that means I can do whatever I want to do with the prenatal diagnosis, and I found it quite interesting because I can increase the number of patients that I can serve. The second thing was about the preimplantation diagnosis. It is permissible, and even like making or conducting research on human embryos as well is permissible. I loved it more, so I can do this freely. So then I published a book about genetic in Arabic, which was really challenging because my education is in English, and I learned Arabic from studying Quran and Hadith and Islamic studies. So I published the book. It is called Genetic Malformation in Children, Its Causes, and the Islamic Opinion in Preventive Procedures. And I did not realize how much this book had a great impact on Muslim patients in United Kingdom, and as well on Muslim patients in Europe and in Islamic countries and Arabic countries. So here we are. I started to think, wow, this is great. So now I'm educating the public. I have to educate the public that to have a genetic disease is not aib. And you use the same word, aib. Because in Arab countries, if you have a genetic disease, oh, it is aib. So you hide the child, you hide everything, so the other daughters and sons can easily get married. And immediately everybody is linking consanguinity into the presence of genetic diseases. And we don't have any statistics, any studies, any counseling programs, anything. So how to attract, to remove these wrong ideas, I decided, and as well to promote the techniques in UK, I started using the BBC, and the BBC English, the media. And in here, I use the power of being a princess. Because the princess has disadvantage, that title, in the academic life, particularly when any professor will look at you. A princess and a doctor doesn't work, doesn't match, it's impossible. But it has an advantage when to open certain doors, like to pick up the phone, to the BBC, and they will immediately find a spot for me to open, to take the phone, to contact any channel or radio station. There is always a place for me. To pick up the phone, I want an appointment in the House of Commons. There is an appointment for me. So I use this title immediately to start to helping people. And I start popularizing prevention programs, and educating the public. What is genetic diseases? It is just only a probability. Even if couples are carrying a genetic disease, a particular genetic disease, that doesn't mean they will have affected children. It is just a probability. It depends if that egg and that sperm, both of them carrying the defected genes when it was the time of fertilization. At the same time, it depends on your luck. It could be. So if it is recessive, 1 in 4. If it is dominant, 1 in 5, 1 in 2, sorry. So it is just like that. I start the education. I use the power of Islam for the Islamic community, which it worked perfectly, particularly with the Bengali, with the Pakistani community in London and in the United States. And then the European countries start to use that book, further in how to provide NHS services. I continued, I finished my degree in '97, with doing so many beautiful cases, publications, and I started my first job, thanks to Lord Winston, at Hammersmith on the 1st of July. That was really interesting, a royal princess receiving a salary less than £2,000 a month, so that's why, God bless my brothers, the 911 code, and whenever I want to buy good clothes or to be a princess again, just call them 911. Immediately, a money transfer will happen to my account. And I lived the scientist and doctor life. I was, at that time, surrounded by a lot of politics. In 1990, there was the economic sanctions forced on my home country, Iraq. And then the bombing, everything against Iraq and the Iraqi people, and too much bombing by the allied forces, etc. And I saw there is a problem here. Where is peace? Where is peace? What is left for us? So I start working with the UNESCO and other organizations about the culture for peace. It is culture that is uniting us, education and science. So, but the power of celebrities and artists, etc., is quite important. And I organized I worked with the UNESCO, but unfortunately then the UNESCO changed the program into Culture of Peace. And I said to Mr. Federico Mayor, the Director General at that time, peace has no culture. However, culture can serve peace. We introduce different cultures and we ask people to see it. If you like it, excellent. If you don't like it, please respect it. Because there is someone somewhere believes in this culture and it is his or her identity. Anyway, as the interfaith dialogue became political, etc., this is the style of the international community. But then I moved forward, and during my years, I saw too much killing everywhere, the hate everywhere. So I decided to organize an art exhibition for Iraqi and Kuwaiti artists, and I did it. It was amazing. Wow, bringing at that time in '96 Iraqis and Kuwaitis, it was something impossible. So they said it is impossible. I said if the Palestinians and the Israelis sat together, why it is impossible? So they did the beautiful exhibition. It was all over the news, etc. It was something new, and the whole world started to follow about the importance of culture, in creating peace. I started my job at Hammersmith Hospital, and to be in the hospital, like the moment you enter the hospital to the IVF unit and to our laboratories, you will see a lot of corridors full of patients, Arab patients. These Arab patients, they came from overseas. They were waiting for translator. And the translators, anybody can speak a bit of English, will become a translator and benefiting financially. But actually, the translators sometimes do not come. So I created within the hospital a style of that we Arab doctors to give our time whenever we are available to translate for the patients. And during that time, I was like a baby factory making a normal, healthy babies for couples having genetic diseases. So whoever wanted a normal, healthy child with no cystic fibrosis, thalassemia, sickle cell anemia, come to NisreenEl-Hashemite.com. So anyway, started, to realize from those Arab patients, there are a lot of cancer patients coming from Kuwait, young children, and they are from the northern part of Kuwait city, which is very close to the Iraqi border. And just realize that actually the reports that it comes from some people that in Al-Basra, there are a lot of, as well, cancer cases that no chemotherapy, anything can work fine. So, okay, what's going on in here? Abnormality, genetic malformation, so many ugly things happening in genetics, in the genetics of these children. I requested from some patients' families some few drops of the sand from Al-Jahra. Al-Jahra, it is like a city in Kuwait. And I asked from some friends if they can get me some drops of sand from Al-Basra and Baghdad, where the heavy bombing was. And I put, these drops of sands in the culture medium for human embryos who were donated for research by the couples. And I just realized that actually these cells are growing up fast. And then I start looking at the chromosomes, and I saw that actually the chromosome structures, the cytogenetics of these embryos, became similar. Like they have the same dislocations or deletions, etc. And as well, I looked at the patients, the Kuwaiti patients' chromosomes, and I saw actually they have the same thing. I looked deep into what happened during this period, and I just realized actually the Americans and the British forces used for the first time something called depleted uranium weapons. And that was in 1991. They used depleted uranium weapons. And when you look deep into depleted uranium weapons, you will see its impact is worse than the enriched uranium, because actually it is very small particles. Even if people wearing masks, it will penetrate that mask and it will get into the bloodstream or into any living organism, and it will change its genetics. And this is how dangerous it is. And these depleted uranium weapons, they were developed in the American laboratories, the American Army laboratories during the Cold War. You know, so actually Iraq was, my home country was like an experiment because of these chemicals. And then how did it come to Kuwait then? And the same cases appearing in eastern of Saudi Arabia, in Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar. They are a bit far because there are so many bombs did not explode, and they were in the rivers, you know. And of course, you know, Shatt al-Arab, the two rivers in Iraq, they go down into the Gulf. So, and as well, depleted uranium can easily move with the sandstorms, etc. So this is how the cancer situation, I start advocating for this. I tried to publish a paper, but as well, for political reasons, it wasn't published. So I did so many things when I was at Hammersmith Hospital, great success, but then I found there is no more to do in science. It was just mainly, biopsy embryos. And for those who don't know what is pre-implantation diagnosis, it is in simple way, if we have a husband and wife or two couples have a genetic disease, carrying genetic disease, so we put, even if they conceive normally, we put these two couples into IVF or test tube babies program, so to generate more eggs from the woman in vitro and to fertilize it with the sperms. And on third day of fertilization, we biopsy each embryo, 2 cells from each embryo. And why it is the third day of fertilization? Because the embryo itself, it looks like a small tiny ball under the microscope, and it has 6 to 8 cells. So the cell's fate is not, like we don't know which one is going to come, and they can divide easily, replace themselves easily. So it doesn't harm the formation of a baby later on. So and after we biopsy, take 2 cells, we diagnose it whether cytogenetics with the chromosomal analysis or with the DNA analysis, and we transfer to the mother's uterus the normal and healthy embryos. So if she will get pregnant, she will have only normal babies, and like this genetic disease will disappear from their lineage. So this is the advantage of this. There is no need for abortion or the complications of abortion after that. So I was just like this, doing the same techniques, everything. Technology changed. Yes, we start to use the automated machines, the fluorescent PCR, etc. But it is the same. There is no more to give other than just, like culture media, how to improve the culture medium. I was inaugurating a conference in Washington, D.C., for Tuberous Sclerosis International Foundation. And in there, it was a medical conference. And in America, usually they have patients, and patients' families come to medical conferences and scientific conferences. And although I did not work on tuberous sclerosis, which is a genetic disease as well, but it causes tumors, benign tumors, why I was invited as a guest of honor and keynote speaker, because I was having my coffee and sitting in the back in front of the building and reading a Arabic newspaper, and they had a press conference at Galton Laboratory in UCL in '97 about discovering the gene that is responsible for this disease. So what happened is that, great, you know, like nobody is listening. And I said, where is the media? We are discovering a gene, you know, 2 genes that's causing this, etc. Where is the media? You know, like to the professors. They said, we don't know. So I picked up the phone, I called some Arab journalists, and I said to them, would you please bring some other media with you from the British? They immediately brought the media, and within 1 hour and a half, the room was full of media, British media and Arabic media. And the following day, all the news talking about these professors. So then the association, you know, supporting the research in the United States invited me as keynote speaker, etc., and as well to use my title to raise more funds during the gala dinner, because everybody would love to see the princess, and at that time I was wearing like Cinderella with the tiara, you know. So when I gave my speech, the doctors, they thought that, oh, you know, she's a princess. They couldn't believe that, you know, like I am a doctor and scientist. So when I was sitting during lunch, they start examining my knowledge and what I'm doing. And then the head of Department of Hematology, Department of Medicine, sorry, at Harvard Medical, at Brigham and Women's Hospital, offered me a job. And he said to me, would you like to work for me? I said, no. He said to me, this is Harvard. I said, I don't care, but I don't work for anybody. I would love to work with you, yes, indeed, but I don't work for anybody. So he said to me, okay, let's rephrase it. Would you like to work with me? I said, would you please send me an official, you know, invitation? I might consider it, etc. So actually, I played, you know, like the princess role here. And inside me, I was, wow, I just want to go to Harvard, you know. So anyway, at that time, my parents moved to America in 2000, and I was home alone in London, every 2 weeks taking a Friday Kuwait Airways flight to New York, and then stay with my family Friday evening, Saturday evening, and Sunday evening fly back to London, and arrive Monday morning to the hospital immediately. So I said, well, it is a good opportunity. I will be like, you know, 3 hours driving away from my family, etc. And my new journey started, and I moved to America and accepted the offer. And oh my God, I'm not going to tell you about the challenges I faced there, because it was the first time to live outside my parents' house. And to, you know, to live outside a family house, this is really a big challenge, because that means I have to choose the furniture, and every piece of furniture I wanted was very much more expensive than my budget, so I had to wait for the sale and for the discounts, and then I bought the beds, etc., but I did not know how to assemble the bed properly as it is in the picture. So I went to the next door hotel, and I took a one-day course in housekeeping, and I became really good, you know, and I start cooking my food by myself, because living in the medical area is very, very difficult, you know. And instead of me driving every weekend to New Jersey to see my family, I used to go once a month for a long weekend, where I used to enjoy, until now actually, the real good bamia in there, you know, dolma, you know, like the real food rather than just salads, omelette. And I became a very good cook, and I started to create my own recipes. So I worked in there on cancer genetics, and I chose to work on pulmonary lymphangiomyomatosis, which is a benign tumor that affect women only during reproductive years, or when they receive HRT, and nobody knows what this disease is all about, why it happens only in women, not in men, etc. And the reason why I accepted this, I wanted to work on this disease, even when I applied for the grant, I said, the reason, it could be me, you know. So I got the first grant and start working on it, on molecular genetics, PI3K, molecular pathway, mTOR pathway, etc., and start identifying tumor markers like from those proteins, like the VEGF, interferon gamma, etc. And I did great work, but at that time, in the same year, 2000, a new agenda started at the United Nations called the Millennium Development Goals. And the Millennium Development Goals, actually, there are 8 goals directed towards the developing and least developed countries. Education for all, end poverty, zero hunger, gender equality, prevention for HIV and infectious diseases, improve maternal health, improve the environment. طيب يعني has all what comes to your mind, what on earth the UN is doing here and the international community? Is HIV only just for Africa or developing countries? What about the HIV in developed countries? Is gender equality only a problem for developing countries or least developed countries? What about United States and UK, etc.? I got upset about so many things, but then I just decided, well, okay, we'll continue with my research work, did great publications. 2001 came, 9/11. The tragedy of the World Trade Center. And we are Muslims there. I was the only Muslim in the whole division. And the only Arab as well. And ya Allah, you should see how the colleagues were looking at me as if I am bin Laden. I'm the one who did this. And then wherever we walk, even in the building where I live, when somebody, like one of the neighbors will say to me, where are you from? I said, I'm from Iraq. And he said to me, and I said to him, where are you from? He said to me, I'm from the country that you hate most. Why I have to hate you, you don't know me. You are a doctor, I'm a doctor. We serve patients. We don't ask about your citizenship, your nationality, your ethnicity, your religion. I don't care. I serve patients whoever they are. I serve students whoever they are, and etc. Then on the same day, I was going from Brigham to MGH, Mass General Hospital, carrying samples, and I was in the cab in the taxi, and the taxi driver looked at me, he said to me, ma'am, how proud to be a Muslim. I said to him, sir, more than your pride to be an American. And he said to me, this is what I want to hear. You are not all the same. So I just start to defend not only myself, but we have the rights here, we are giving here, we did a lot in here, and this is not right. So I start introducing, educating people about Islam, etc., and refusing that Islam is terrorist, and saying to them, you are the one, your government created Osama bin Laden to fight the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. It wasn't us who created Osama bin Laden, so you are the one who created this monster, and you are the one who directed this monster to harm us more than it is harming you. Because these radicals, the moment they look at me, they don't see how knowledgeable I am in my religion or practicing my religion, but they will immediately say to me, where is your hijab? You are not Allah to judge me. Allah only judge me, nobody else. And I am not perfect. The perfection is only for God. And I'm very proud of my mother's hijab. And I wish I will be like my mother, who did great services for humanity, and she's still, So anyway, then I start moving ahead with my work, more achievements, more publications, more conferences, more grants, and then the invasion on Iraq happened. More killing, more killing, more killing. And I will never forget the day when a professor said to me, you will be wearing black all your life. So many things. Nobody cared about those children dying, and nobody cared about those women, or etc. And for me, I'm a peace activist. I'm a peace activist. I love peace. And for me, science, arts are the peace. Education is peace. You know, tolerance, it's so beautiful, forgiveness. So then I was working on developing treatment for pulmonary lymphangiomyomatosis, renal kidney angiomyolipoma, which is another kidney tumor, benign tumor, and liver hemangioma. I was presenting my data in a scientific conference, and the moment I said thank you, and usually when I present my data, I concluded with a picture of one of my coffee paintings, you know, and one of Rumi's lines, because I love Rumi. I'm a passionate of Rumi. So I hope one day, next visit I will go and visit his shrine in Konya. Anyway, the moment I turned my face like this, and everybody stood up to applaud, and so wonderful, great results, except one man. He said to me, excellent American science. It has nothing to do with politics. I'm serving patients. At the same time, there was an American celebrity that his twin sister, passed away from lymphangiomyomatosis, from pulmonary LAM. He ran towards me, and he hugged me and kissed me, and I was looking at him saying like this, I'm not going to wash my face for a month, you know, and etc. And that man saying excellent American science. That celebrity is saying, please do it to save people's life. And I urge NIH to join, you know, like the clinical trial, etc. While this one is telling me, want to put politics inside. And I said to him, it is an Iraqi science conducted in the United States of America, proudly said, sir. He stood up and said, yes. And we did the research, the clinical trial. It was excellent, perfect, you know, we suppose. And what is the medication? Interferon gamma, that is in the market. It is antiviral drug, but it boosts, it is a cytokine secreted in the body. And that cytokine, when cancer patients, it disappears to a level that goes zero. And that cytokine, we needed to stimulate natural killer cells in the white blood cells. Perfect. The other drug is an immunosuppressant drug used after organ transplantation, and it stops, you know, cell proliferation and etc. And so, like, it boosts the apoptosis, the programmed cell death, and etc. And it worked perfectly for these three tumors, etc. And with a way of a marker, you know, from the blood, etc. But unfortunately, in beginning of 2006, the company that produces one of the drugs, the immunosuppressant, prevented us from using this for cancer patients, because it is for, you know, transplantation only. And this is the pharmaceutical mafia, as they call it, everywhere. Because actually they proposed a new drug that to test it on my mice and etc., that they added only water molecule to it. Just a water molecule to create a new drug. But this is too much. You know, like, we are talking about patients. When you see these young women, 22 years or 26 years or 4 or 5 or 30 years, you know, walking with, pulling the oxygen tank with her, just to be able to breathe, and their life is taken away from them, etc. And we cannot save these people's life from the beginning, you know, just because of that water molecule. And they wanted to do the trial starting from phase 1, and those who are working in pharmaceutical sciences will know how long does it take. We have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and then we will look at the FDA approval, and then etc., the stock market here and there, and we all know that things. I found this unethical. There is a big problem here. There is a big problem. At the same time, I was working on, you know, like some public work as well. But there's something unethical. Then I start realizing the problems in my country, the problems in the Middle East, wherever we go, there is a problem. The world is in the hands of ignorance. Even pharmaceutical companies, okay, make a profit. I love companies to make profit, because when you make profit means you will employ more people. You need to expand, means you will employ more people, so etc. So actually it's good for the economy, but not to be greedy that much. So there is something unethical here. I start digging in here and there, and at that time the Royal Academy of Science International Trust sent me an offer that if I can accept the position executive director. I said the whole problem actually existing because I don't blame the policymakers in the international community. I blame ourselves. We did not make our voices heard. We don't have the courage to go to the international community to say this works and this doesn't work. Or to go to policymakers and to present them data, to talk to them scientifically, to present solutions, not to accept the ignorance that they are trying to force more and more and more. It's like when they, in 2000, I received a proposal from one of the agencies to take the lead about women development and women empowerment in Islamic countries. And I looked at the paper like this and I said, this works, this is great, this is great. Oh, no, this doesn't work, this has to be like that. And the gentleman, he said to me, you know what is our problem with you? You are too much educated, too much knowledgeable, and we don't know how to deal with you. You always have an opinion, you don't follow. You think. This is a big problem. Think about it, because there are so many others who would love to take the lead. In an international conference, I went there wearing my navy blue blazer, jeans, white shirt, my stethoscope, my hospital name, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, anybody can do public work. In this world, there are so many queens, first ladies, princesses, ladies who can do public work. But among all of these, there is only one princess who is a doctor and scientist. Her name is Nisreen El-Hashemite. I have patience to serve. Thank you for your kind attention. I don't have time to waste it with you. And I left. And I just realized, actually, we did not stop these people because they were causing us harm. Empowering women doesn't mean to employ women only, neglecting that this young man needs to be employed, because if that man is not employed, it means he cannot get married. He cannot support himself. We will have, problem here. Not only unemployment, easily to be taken into radical groups, etc., etc. And, poverty is the worst thing. So anyway, they don't know anything. They are just sitting in offices. These people are sitting in offices. They don't know what's happening on the ground. So decided that to accept the offer of Razet and to be its executive director. But actually, I wanted to build my own legacy in science and medicine, away from my family legacy. And I found politics surrounding me everywhere, even in my scientific research. I'm not going to talk about so many obstacles. Even to get promoted, to get my rights. Oh, you are a princess, you don't need money. But it's my right, it's my grant, my own money. I'm the one who brought to Harvard or to Imperial or UCL this money, It's my own grant. Anyway, I decided that to leave everything and to be the voice of the unheard to the international community. And went back to my family legacy, the Royal Academy of Science International Trust. The most difficult thing was to deal with I cannot, at that time I was younger than now, but they are older and professional. All of them professional. I was like the kid. In a minute I will say, I'm jam auntie. You know, that gap between us. And start with the good communication, you know, listening to them, etc., introducing a new style of management. Like instead of meeting physically, we can meet once a year or twice a year physically, and the rest is through Skype. In 2007, to do this, wow, this is quite difficult. As well, to do so many other things, not necessary to be physically there. I can manage anything online. This is technology. Perfect. And to learn from them. Without their mentorship, their opinion, I couldn't move forward. But, yani, I am, sometimes, you know, like I can say I am stubborn. Yani, Hashemiyya, Iraqiyya, and at the same time a doctor and scientist. That means I want to do what I want to do. And I did what I wanted to do and got the support, etc. And whenever the board doesn't agree, I will go to my father, the founder president, and I use the power of His Royal Highness, you know. And I achieved a lot. The first thing, I just realized that you know, like we need to create a kind of collaboration between the North and the South, East and West, through scientific research, to establish a scientific institute. But that scientific institute, when I went to Arab countries to establish it, I found that they don't have any idea about the importance of scientific research in recent days. Because in the Gulf states, anything you want, you can buy it. They don't do anything in-house. Money talks. Anyway, start to popularize science, how to popularize it. Establish the Science Cafe. What is the Science Cafe? You know, last Thursday of every month, I will invite a professor to come and talk to the public in Arabic language about how this thing has an impact on their daily life. For example, chemistry in medicine, chemistry in makeup, chemistry in sabun, in shampoo, etc. You know, in anything, everything surrounding us, you know. Even cooking, why you cannot put this with that, you know, like to that extent. Mathematics, accountancy, this and that. Physics, I brought a sport person, you know, like a snooker player, to talk about physics. It is physics, you know, or electricity, music, etc. So I brought this science, I brought those professors from their castle at the universities all the way into City Cafe at Al Hamra in Beirut city. And why Beirut? Why Lebanon? Because anything in Arab countries comes out of Lebanon. Fashion, Lebanon. You know, the style of language, Lebanon. This Lebanon, that Lebanon, everything comes from Lebanon. We had the style of May Ziyada. You don't know who's May Ziyada. A famous Lebanese lady in the late 19th century and early 20th century, where women used to sit in one part and men in one part, not mixed. She had what is called salon, you know, where all these intellectuals will come and sit in that salon, you know, to discuss something. Imagine from May Ziyada with her style of empowering Arab women to a style of Haifa Wahbi. So many of you maybe know Haifa Wahbi. You know, like she is an artist, she has no voice, but she is provocative a bit. So she became like a role model for girls, you know, because she became very famous internationally. So anyway, and this is the style of Beirut. So we started bringing all these scientists. Imagine 5 years, last Thursday of every month, there is a speaker from somewhere in Arab countries. The first 3 months, I sent invitations. After that, the cafe used to be full inside and outside. And people put it on their agenda. And then we moved to, as well, 3 years later, we moved to Science Cafe for children, to attract children to love science and how science has an impact on their daily life. We finished with this popularization, a great work. At that time, the programs were running and they created other programs. And finally, we are allowed to visit our home country. And I asked my father for the permission if he will allow me to be the first before him. And he said to me, of course you go. And I saw my home country, Iraq, for first time, visited my grandfather, my uncle, my cousin, my aunties, my grandmother, that all are buried in Baghdad, and I saw them in history books. And I enjoyed my country. I did a great training in there, in science, in youth mentoring, etc. And so many things. I don't want to talk more about my achievements. Then with the youth empowerment, with other things, just realized that actually with the women in science, what we are doing here, there's a problem at the international community. And and even with the women's health, with so many things. At that time, we are talking 2011, 12, it was towards the end of the Millennium Development Goals, 15 years, and the new agenda will start in the United Nations called Sustainable Development Goals. At that time, they did not know what to call it. They called it Post-2015 Agenda. And I start to advocate about the role of science in development, in sustainable development. And we managed it. Wow, it was amazing, advocating with member states, etc. Then we start to think about establishing the World Women's Health and Development Forum. You might think, why Women's Health and Development Forum? I will tell you why. In a time, the international community, all the world, all the time, even at schools now, in Turkey, in every country, forced by the international community on us. Everybody talks about sexual health and reproductive health. They put women's health as on the level of sexual and reproductive. I worked on reproductive medicine myself, and I campaigned for it. I did great work with UNFPA earlier. But there was a problem here, that when I joined Harvard, I started working on why diseases appearing more severely in women than in men. And I start working on the estrogen, hormones, all these trials, etc. And just realized actually there is 6 differences in health and illness. And in the United States, they start to establish, this women's health about any research happening should have 6 differences in 2005. So I start looking then, okay, we need to improve women's health status from the international community. Then what we will do is that to focus on WHO data saying that cardiovascular diseases are more dangerous in women than in men. That disease more dangerous, #1 killer in women than in men. And to bring the attention of the international community into the 6 differences in health and in illness. Not the gender, because gender differences is the social and economic differences. Of course, we need to focus on the gender issues, but the main thing, medically speaking, we need to focus on the 6 differences. And why the 6 differences? Because now, if you go to any doctor, a man and woman have the same level of cholesterol, the doctor will prescribe the medication 20 meg, 20 meg. But the biology of the female is different than the biology of the male. So maybe the female needs 10 meg, or 15 meg, or 40 meg. That's why the medications that are available now are not effective on women. Because mainly these medications were tested on men. I'm not saying here gender, man and woman. I'm talking about medicine, because our biology is different between man and woman. And we need to focus on this. Even like the same way when we do for the biomedical engineering and biomedical physics, the X-ray, etc., the amount of X-ray that the woman needs is different than the amount of X-ray that the man needs to look at certain things, tumors, diseases, etc. So I start to introduce all of these facts, but is it only just the medications or the biological things? No, there is the lifestyle, there is the media, there are so many other issues that it has an impact on women's life, women's health. And I brought this to the international community in 2015. God knows how much challenges I faced at the United Nations. And from WHO, from Ban Ki-moon's initiative, every woman, every child, from the UN Foundation, etc., from the UN Women, because they don't know, they don't have the experience. They are just people, have social, God knows what kind of degree. They are not medical doctors. They are not experts. In United Nations, we don't have real experts to talk about this or that. They are experts maybe in politics, but not in medicine, not in biology, not in chemistry, even in statistics. The failure of the Millennium Development Goals, because they did not have indicators, because they did not bring statisticians to look at things, because without statisticians, we cannot analyze data, we cannot see where we are going and draw policies and solutions. And we did the first one. 12 ministers from around the world. We had 12 ministers, we have excellent speakers, in addition to professors, men, women, experts from around the world, and the declaration came out. The UN Assistant Secretary General to say this is the most important event happened in the United Nations since its foundation. Because we brought the real voices of people, the experts, to the United Nations. I broke the norm here. It was difficult to persuade professionals and experts, please come and speak. But they don't understand my language. They will not do this. No, they will do. If you keep quiet, nobody will do what you want to do. You have to have the courage and speak up. They introduced everything. And wow, we had the declaration approved by acclamation, which is very good. And it has been adopted as a UN document. Great. And we started, after that, working on the issue of bringing women in science into the international arena. You might say, why women in science? Why I'm interested in women in science? I am a woman in science myself. And my salary, I worked in United Kingdom and United States. My salary was less than my male colleague's salary. We are doing the same job, etc. But because he's a male, I'm a female, my salary was less than his salary by 32%. This is in the hospital. Why? Because of gender equality. I started in '98 investigating about this issue. Investigating. And then I just realized that, okay, women did not do anything about it. Oh, they accepted the fact, oh, that's okay, like I have a job. Why to bother? Nobody will listen to me. I cannot do anything. And then they keep complaining. Oh, we don't have rights. We don't have this. And then they tell you, oh, the Saudi women do not drive cars. This do not have this. But your salary is less than your male colleague. And nobody want to say anything about it. No, I'm a big fighter. But a fighter with, my style of fighting is being determined to achieve the goal rather than being aggressive and fighting with people. No, I don't fight with people. My style is being determined. So we brought, the Women in Science International League with a group of ladies, incredible ladies from different countries. We start working on, from the beginning, with the UN entities, Commonwealth Secretariat, with other entities from the EU, etc. And just so that there is a need to be regional, because actually whatever is suitable for this country is not necessary to be suitable for the other country. And we want to develop women, and situation and empower women in the way, with respect to different cultures and different needs. So we did the second conference was Muslim Women in Science. in 2000. Oh my God, that was the biggest challenge. But we came out of it with the recommendations, and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Summit adopted the whole recommendations, and that's why you can see boost in the number of women, Muslim women in science, as graduates and working, etc. Even it helped in improving the situation in Saudi Arabia and Gulf states and Arab countries. So great, we're done with that. Then move to other things, introduce several programs, seminars, etc. We discussed even motherhood. We discussed that men and women are partners rather than competitors. We did it, yes, but what was missing? Recognition. We don't have recognition. Okay, when we introduced to UNESCO to do the International Award for Women in Science, they did not like the idea because we don't pay them money. And they went into L'Oreal, and L'Oreal actually is unethically using the name of the United Nations to do marketing for itself and they are just a grant provider. It's not an award, it's just a grant provider. So this is unethical because they are neglecting the role of other private sector, to encourage the other private sector institutions to do more and more. So, okay, how we can recognize women in science? I made another history at the UN, as usual, I believe that we make history. I don't have to live on history. I never lived on the history of my grandfather, my ancestors, or even the achievements of my father. I made my own history. And I believe that now, more than ever, we need to write history today rather than tomorrow. So I took the courage, I wrote a letter. Of course, I did my homework with my dear colleague, Richard Jordan, who has more experience at the United Nations system. And I wrote the letter, went to President Kotesa, the president of the 69th session of the United Nations General Assembly. And I said to him, Your Excellency, I present you an official request to proclaim February 11 as the International Day of Women in Science, Women and Girls in Science, and this is what you can do based on your authorities, etc., etc. He laughed. He said to me, it never happened that a non-governmental organization to come and present a resolution. I said, well, there is always the first time, and here I am the first, and you will be the first to accept. And he said to me, oh, this is quite interesting, but we need a member state. To say, this letter, I accept it, but I need a member state to support you. I start advocating with all member states, name it. Unfortunately, none of them. Oh yes, a great idea. But yalla, come on, yalla habibi. Just, your signature here, like that. I support the application of the Royal Academy of Science, that's it. And seal it, stamp it. We don't need anything else. Doesn't need anything else. If it was a resolution about like the International Day of Toilets or washing hands, it will be done. But because it is for women and girls in science, oh my God. So anyway, we did, I called Minister Helena Dali in Malta. She was one of the speakers because her ministry at that time it was, until now actually, responsible for the national health services in Malta. And she's a woman in science herself, and she was present during the World Women's Health and Development Forum. And I said to her, you always talk about action. You are a woman leader in position. If you don't do it, who's gonna do it? Otherwise, you all women in positions keep talking women, and nothing is done. And I will be against all women in position. So she laughed, because she has such a beautiful heart, and me and her always joking, and laughing about, being women in science ourselves. And then she said to me, okay, she took the lead and she spoke to the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister gave the support of the government of Malta. And he spoke with his foreign minister, but actually the mission of Malta is very small in number to the United Nations. So, okay, Razet will do all the homework, no worries, we will do all the homework. And we met during the informal consultations. In UN language, it is called informal consultations, in which United Nations member states, they meet in a room and they look at the resolution, draft resolution, and they discuss it. Then they report to their capitals, and then they come back in another informal consultation, etc. And then we were serving the advisors and answering the questions. I was surprised by how much member states are ignoring so many things about the rights or the need for women in science. I reached to a point that one of the deputy ambassadors was saying something, oh, we have International Women's Day. I said to him, no, sir, you don't have International Women's Day. March 8th is not an international official day of the United Nations. It has no General Assembly resolution. There is nothing called International Women's Day. That day that is celebrated worldwide on March 8th, it is an American New York City history, and the UN, because it is based in New York, followed this tradition, and because we love everything, if Frenji becomes a Brenji, Brenji comes number one. We use it in Arabic as well, as anything comes from the West comes number one. So actually, the whole world followed March 8th. But legally, Turkey can now submit an application to the General Assembly and wants the International Women's Day to be 23rd of Nisan, for example, and it will happen to that extent. So actually, we need International Day for Women and Girls in Science. We achieved it. We went through, we were only one government co-sponsoring. On the day, on 4th of December, in the second committee of the General Assembly, we became almost 68 countries co-sponsoring a resolution for an International Day. Of course, this is unbelievable for an International Day in UN system. This doesn't happen. Usually, if you got 12 countries, wow, this is a big thing. And by the day of the General Assembly votes, it happened on 22nd of December, 2015 at 4 p.m. We had more than 70 countries co-sponsoring the resolution. At 4 p.m., all member states agreed not to vote, means that they all approve on the resolution, and the PGA, the President of General Assembly of the 70th session, he at 4 p.m. exactly said, adopted, and we have an International Day of Women and Girls in Science. We made history, and we are making history today more than, starting from today for tomorrow. We are writing futures history with the girls who are now can be recognized. They have their own day, girls in science, women in science, with all their achievements, the international community recognizing women in science for the first time. And this is, what is it? For peace and development. Women in science for peace and development. Their role in peace and development. Because if there is no peace, there is no development. If there is no peace, we cannot move forward. If there is no peace, there is no grants. If there is no peace, we cannot create change in what we are doing. And this is the biggest thing. Now we did the first commemoration, transforming our world, gender equality in science, with the United Nations at the UN headquarters, and it was the first time in UN history for commemorating an International Day to have 3 presidents sending video messages. The second commemoration, we moved from a conference room into the General Assembly Hall, and I believe that all Turkey heard about Talia Özdemir, the little girl addressing the United Nations. And now, the third commemoration happening next year in February, and hope that your honorable university and colleagues in here will be in there participating. And it will be over 2 days instead of 1 day, over 2 days or 3 days. And it will be at the General Assembly, and it will be at presidential and ministerial level. So women in science will sit with ministers, and girls in science with ministers, with policymakers, and the whole thing now that I'm moving, the problem is not at the bottom of the pyramid. We have a great foundations doing a great work. So many of you going to schools, doing social responsibility, so many foundations doing a great work on the ground. The problem is from the top of the pyramid. And that's why we don't have more women in science in continuing their scientific career. That's why we don't, women or girls do not choose science, etc., because the problem is from the policy. And the middle thing is the media. So we are now working on the policy, changing the policy from science policy interface to the role of women in science in peacekeeping missions. Women in science in peacekeeping, the Undersecretary General said, this is a bit crazy. I said, yeah, you need doctors, you need teachers, you need engineers. It's not necessary to be a military officer. You need all of that. Perfect, now they are on board. So many other agencies on board. And now this is the thing. And once we are done with this policymakers, and we have not only women, we have men in science, because the man is my partner, not my competitor. And this is what we have to keep in mind, in our girls' mind, that the man is our partner, not our competitor. Allah created us equally, together. So, and then we will move to the media. Because the media, like showing, if I will tell you something, I watch Turkish TV series. Although some people think that I am in love with Valley of Walls and Polat Alemdar, but I did a study about that TV series, actually. So it is a psychosocial study. But my favorite TV series is called When Time Passes, and Echarde, I think it is called. Yeah, these are so far. So anyway, when you look at the TV series, and I flip on different TV series, Ya Allah, yani, all what you need to see is beautiful woman who is very weak, that she accepts her husband to beat her and to cheat on her, and etc. And she is always the forgiving, and she's the dependent rather than the independent, etc. The way they show the Turkish women is completely different than reality. Really, look at the number of Turkish women, engineers, like the number, I mentioned it 2 days ago, the number of Turkish women, engineers in industry and academia is higher than the number of women studying engineering or in working force in United States and Europe. For goodness sake, 70 million, and continent and subcontinent. You should be proud of your country and your women, but the media is showing us with Tuba, Beren, etc., etc., the gorgeous, how they know how to dress up. Wallahi, Turkish women knows how to dress up in the street, and they are beautiful and great women. So we need to change this. Because why with Turkish media? Because you might say, oh, we are in love with Turkey. Yes, we are. I have heritage with Turkey. From past and present, and inshallah for the future, with collaboration and partnership. And I'm very proud of this country. But as well, we need to change to understand that Turkish TV series, Turkey is the second export of drama in the world after Hollywood. So Turkish TV series are in India, with Indian translation and voiceover. And I went to Singapore on Singapore TV, you know, when I was in that conference where the picture is taken, you know, last March. Okay, and it was Jasur and the beauty that, you know, that Kevansh, I think his name, Muhannad, whatever his name, you know, the blonde guy, you know, and and it is like with the Chinese or Korean, whatever their language, you know, and then you go to Africa. I was in Addis Ababa, and they have Turkish TV series. You go to Hispanic channels in America, they have Turkish TV series. So man, you are all over the world. So we need to work on Turkish drama and Turkish media series in order to improve the situation of women and to promote women as role models. You know, we need to promote women as role models. You know, we need to show our boys and girls that we have a man and a woman. And it is her or his choice to select the man or the woman, you know, as a role model. We need role models in our lives, and this is what I'm working on. The last thing I just would like to say that 2.5 weeks ago, I received Muhammad Ali International Humanitarian Award of the Year. Muhammad Ali, the boxer, and he's my hero. And I used to say to Mama when I was a kid, oh, he is pretty, but I am irresistible. You know, because he used to say, I am pretty. And he's my hero. And I always have his picture on my desk beside my family pictures. I never met him personally. But his statement that I'm free to be what I want to be. I don't have to be what you want me to be. I'm free what I want to be. That was like a kind of power. Although I always take my strength and power from Quran al-Kareem, from the Sirat of Rasulullah, from Sayyida Khadija, from Sayyida Fatima, Sayyida Zainab, Sayyidina Ali, you know, from Sayyida Asma bint Abi Bakr. These are my role models, you know. And there are so many great women as well in the history. But, you know, like, and I take my strength from my parents, because without them, I won't be who I am now. You know, I could be like any other princess or woman from the elite society, etc. Without my brothers as well. But Muhammad Ali had an impact on me because he fought for his principles. He fought for his principles in a country that was divided by color. You know, divided by everything until now, you know. So he fought for his principles and he never sold his principles. Something similar to Sayyidina al-Hussein, Hadrat al-Hussein, you know, he refused to sell his principles, you know, and he fought for the principles. And this is my strength. And when I received the award, I said, you know, like a humanitarian work. This is my belief. A humanitarian work is not just to give tangible items in emergencies. A humanitarian work is not just to give tangible items for those in need. A humanitarian work is to transfer education, knowledge, technology, to work with people hand in hand. This is a humanitarian work, to work for all and to give unconditionally. I believe that since I was 14 years old, I've been giving unconditionally. I did not live my teenage life because Sharifa Fatima, my mother, sent me to public work. You know, this is how I lived my life, and this is how I will continue my life, to give unconditionally. I am so grateful to stand up here and to talk that long, to share with you a bit of Nisreen. First time that I'm talking about Nisreen, not about the international community, etc. I don't know how to promote myself. I don't like to talk about myself. I always like to talk about other people's achievements and to promote others. And I like always to present the best in every society, because I always say that when we see beauty, we can identify the problems easily and find solutions. But I'm so grateful. I hope that I did not take a lot of your time, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your kind attention. Zainab Hanum, thank you so much. Jandan Hanum, I will greatly miss you when I leave tomorrow. And thank you very much for everything. Thank you for even, like it was just a small thing through a conversation, and you made it through to take me around to see things related to Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. He's a hero for me, like my grandfather, King Faisal I. And I'm grateful that I'm in Turkey, and I wish you all the best, and I will be happy to receive any question, any comments, etc. And I will miss you when I leave. I will miss Turkey, but I think I will come back for a Turkish coffee. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was very inspiring. I'm looking at my girls. I'm hoping they will rush back to the lab straight away and finish their work as women in science.
They have to.
They have to. Yes. Do we have any questions? Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Highness, my name is Ibrahim. I'm born in your country as well. بحكي عربي شوية كمان.
يا أهلا ومرحبا. تشرفنا بكم أستاذ إبراهيم.
متشكر كثير. I left the country after the revolution in 1958. My father was a medical doctor as well in Baghdad. Anyhow, women in Scandinavia have a different role than in Turkey than in Saudi Arabia. We need to see that the women in Saudi Arabia, for example, will have a bigger role in the society, and maybe people like yourselves will have more active role in the politics of Saudi Arabia. We need to see them in the politics as well in the role of international role, let's say.
Yes, indeed, I do agree with you, sir, but I don't deal with politics. But I will tell you what is my politics. It is education, science, and health, and culture. Let's put it in this way. I thought at the beginning that Saudi women do not have rights, etc. I will mention a name of a lady. Her name is Thuraya Ubaid. She was the executive director of United Nations Population Fund for several years, and she did great work and reform. The best person came, like in the last 2 decades as the executive director. A Saudi woman, conservative, like she will be sitting in a meeting and she might say, excuse me for a minute, and the meeting continuing, and she will go and do her prayer and come back, or was fasting, etc. That lady started her job. She was a scholar. She received her education through scholarship from Saudi Arabia. So imagine, Saudi Arabia sends girls to study abroad in scholarships. And then she started her career at the UN. It was personal initiative, and she was the first executive director under Secretary General to be appointed by a Secretary General without the support or any support of any member state because of her qualification. And she was appointed during Kofi Annan time. So she was a great example, and she brought up the attention towards as well Saudi women, the achievers. The problem with Saudi women, there are so many great Saudi women in medicine, in science, in education, deans, professors, etc., whether in Saudi Arabia or outside, even successful business women. Top companies like Layan Holding, #1 holding company in Saudi Arabia, is run by a woman. The father gave the rolling nut to the sons, to the woman, to the daughter, I mean. And everything is great, they are doing great. They have equal pay in Saudi Arabia. They have so many things, but unfortunately the international media or the other countries are not focusing on the positive things in Saudi Arabia. Always women do not have rights to drive, etc. Thuraya Ubaid, when she left the position, she went back to Saudi Arabia and she worked closely as an advisor to King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz. And thanks to her and thanks to King Abdullah, the late king of Saudi Arabia, they founded women, like women now are present in the Shura Council. Even in Baladiya Council, not Baladiya, the provinces council, etc. So actually all what it takes is the courage of one person or the courage of people to come and create something. All the other women before her, they were just, like either the problem, they were either fighting, being aggressive, or they are ignoring, But now you see how the changes are moving, even like with the driving, etc., etc. Everything is going smoothly, thanks to Thuraya Ubaid and the team with her that she selected. And this is political thing. Because, women's rights, women equality, gender equality, etc., etc., all of this, it's not against Islam or it is not haram. Actually, if, if Muslim women will take their rights according to Quran, wallahi, the man who's supposed to ask, where is my right? But unfortunately, we don't know a lot about the thing. Politics, at the end of the day, I don't deal with governments. I deal only with professors, etc. I deal with governments at the level of United Nations. Because you know, sir, with my name, alhamdulillah, immediately, I will not be here again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
The thing is that we like to see the women more active in such societies like Islam.
They are active, but unfortunately nobody is talking about them. For example, the first uterus, womb, female uterus, transplantation, organ transplantation in the world was developed, the technique was developed, and the operation was conducted by a Saudi woman. She wears her hijab, she is a wonderful, great surgeon and doctor. Her name is Wafa al-Faqih. She did this in the year 2000. Did anybody talk about her?
No, but this is what the problem is. We don't know. We don't hear about them.
This is the thing.
We need to hear their voice.
And imagine she saved the lives of so many women and her techniques is all over the world. But actually this is the role of media, to bring the positive role models. And this is what we were talking, even Hanzadeh Hanum mentioned in her speech during the gala dinner, that she urged the media who were present in the gala dinner and even in the conference to start bringing positive role models, not only from Turkey, from different parts of the world. We need to bring, like we have women in science through history, but nobody heard about them, and this is what we are trying to do.
Thank you, Your Highness.
Thank you. العفو كل الهلا بيكم.
Any more? Maybe they might ask you questions in more informally.
Yes, I think the girls want a photograph.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Thank you so much.